Hi, hello everyone. Dr. Naveen here from UPSC Medico. So this video, I'll be discussing the questions from 2020 paper, that is UPSC Medical Science Optional, and this is paper 2, and from paper 2 this is section B. So section B, as you all know, includes three subjects. One is general surgery, other is obstetrics and gynecology, and finally we also have preventive medicine or PSM included in it. So now let's look at the questions. So this question is again from general surgery, from the syllabus, causes of secondary hypertension. Okay, so secondary hypertension is in the syllabus, and one of the important surgical cause of secondary hypertension is pheochromocytoma. We also have adrenal gland in the syllabus. Okay, so it may be a mix of both. Now, so what is it? They're asking about the clinical features, they're asking about the diagnostic workup, and also the management aspects. Similar questions, like not particularly pheochromocytoma, but an adrenal mass. How will you approach a case was asked in 2010, and in 2009 they were asking about enumerate the different surgical causes of hypertension and also the management of severe hypertension with the right adrenal mass. This is again the pheochromocytoma part. So it's a repeat from 2009 and 2010. So definitely you have to go through hypertension in a holistic or an integrated manner. So what we did in our video course is most bulk of the discussion was done in physiology plus the pharmacology part. Okay, so in pharma we did discuss the management and also about secondary hypertension along with antihypertensive medication. And with regards to physiology, we also had another question in the same paper, in paper 1 section A, that is regulation of blood pressure. So the baroreflex part, renin, angiotensin, aldosterone mechanism, all these important topics are discussed in physiology. So in physio and pharma, we tried to cover this topic as a whole. Question number 5B is, it's for 10 marks. It's etiopathogenesis, clinical features and management of amoebic liver abscess. Again, it's amoebic liver abscess is, we all know, is caused by entamoeba histolytica. We have intestinal and extraintestinal amoebiasis. In the extraintestinal part, one of the complications is liver abscess again. So this part is discussed in detail in the microbiology part again. And also we did discuss how a patient presents with it and also the management aspects. Is there any other question related to this? Yeah, definitely. The previous year questions, this Hilton's method of draining of an abscess was asked, and general definition of what is an abscess. In 1995 itself, there is other question, describe the clinical features of amoebic abscess, okay, in the liver and its management. And in 1998, discuss pathogenesis and lab diagnosis of amoebic liver abscess. And in 2006, what are the causes of liver abscess? Discuss their clinical presentation and how will you investigate and manage. So the details of the management are discussed actually in the surgery. We have a separate section called surgical infections in the surgical infections in the general surgery part of the video course. So next question is, enumerate the complications associated with liver abscess and how you're going to manage liver abscess in a 40-year-old diabetic. So they did give you where is this abscess located within the liver, and they're asking you to write steps in management. This was asked in 2011, and very recent was 2013. And what is the mode of infection, clinical presentation and complications of amoebic liver abscess, and also briefly outline the management of patients with amoebic liver abscess, including what kind of surgeries you are going to do in these cases, that is Hilton's method of abscess drainage and all. So you need to have a general idea about this. And this is again a repeat question and very important question. Next, we're done with 5A and 5B, which are both are from surgery, general surgery. And now we have from gynecology, abnormal uterine bleeding. See, DUB is no longer there, dysfunctional uterine bleeding. Now we call it as abnormal uterine bleeding. So here they have given 35-year-old nulliparous female with heavy menstrual bleeding. Okay, so this is not postmenopausal bleeding. This is actually bleeding in the reproductive age group, and there is associated anemia with it. So what are all the conditions which leads to kind of dysmenorrhea or abnormal uterine bleeding in these? You have to write or mention them, and you also need to give the management protocol in this case. Similar questions are asked in 2001. Previously it used to be called as DUB, but now it's AUB, abnormal uterine bleeding. So previous questions were on DUB. Write a short notes on DUB. And question 2009 was define DUB. What are its clinical features and investigations? How would you manage a 35-year-old lady with an ovulatory bleeding? Okay, 34-year-old. And I think it's almost close to this question. Here, instead of giving 35-year-old with ovulator, they are giving nulliparous woman with heavy menstrual bleeding. In 2011 also this question was asked. Define dysfunctional uterine bleeding. How will you diagnose a case of very important one? Metropathia hemorrhagica, Swiss cheese pattern polyglandular disease, and briefly write the management of metropathia hemorrhagica. Very important. And question number 4, define DUB. How would you manage a patient of DUB with 35 years of age who has completed her family? This is not nulliparous bleeding. This is actually patient who completed her family. What are you going to do? Because they said that she has completed her family, you can go ahead and do hysterectomy if needed. Okay. You can't do that in an unmarried female. Okay. You can't go for that extravagant measures. Okay. Now, finally, question number 5 is draw a flowchart on how you're going to evaluate a case of a 50-year-old lady presenting with abnormal uterine bleeding. It's again not. They did not give postmenopausal bleeding, but definitely this comes under the category of the abnormal menstruation or abnormal menstrual bleeding. So definitely a repeat question from menstrual disorders. So this AUB or DUB part is very important, and this is from gynecology for 10 marks. Now question number 5D. It's from obstetrics. What are the advantages of vaginal births over cesarean section? What is the current cesarean section? What are the current cesarean section rates globally and in India? And this is like straightforward topics from our standard textbook. That is Williams Obstetrics, and we did quote the same in our obstetric notes. In the cesarean section part, I have given details. What are the reasons behind rising cesarean section rates? Okay, what are the advantages of vaginal birth over cesarean section, and what are the implications of cesarean section on future pregnancies, associated complications, kind of TOLAC, like trial of labor and all these are like what happens in the future is very important. Now similar question was asked, like what are the indications of LSCS, and in the subsequent pregnancy how will you suspect impending scar rupture, and what are the advantages of lower section cesarean section over classical cesarean section? This is lower segment cesarean section over classical cesarean section. What is the advantage? This is was asked in 2011. And for me, this is kind of new question, and you can only answer this if you go through this topic from Williams, which like we along with Mudaliar, Menon and Datta, we also take reference from Williams Obstetrics when we are working on the notes part. Now, question number 5D. What is the significance of birth weight for an infant? Okay. Why birth weight is very important? Because again, if birth weight is low, the baby is prone for a hell lot of complications, right? So that is what they are inferring. And under the international standards, what define low birth weight? So this, I think this question is from let's say PSM part, and again the pediatrics part, but more PSM than pediatrics, because this infant mortality rate and again low birth weight, undernutrition, malnutrition, they're dealt in both parts of the subjects, right? But more weightage when you're preparing for these subjects, what we when we are preparing content for these subjects, what our team usually does is we go for both OPGAI pediatric textbook and also the PSM latest 25th edition. Clubbing them together, we'll try to find out. Most of the times what I observed is we tend to get answers like straightforward straight liners from the PSM part, the PARC part. Okay, so under the international standards, what is the definition of LBW? And from the perspective of causation, how are low birth weight babies broadly grouped? So classification of the low birth weight they're asking. Very recently, even in 2019 also, definition was asked. Okay, what are the measures that can help reduce the burden of low birth weight babies in the community is asked. Okay, it's more of generic way. I think if you're preparing for UPSC, for you these kind of questions should be a cakewalk, because you will be into this subjective analysis of the crisis faced by Indian health system, right? So these kind of answers, you are better person to present them in a aesthetic way than me, being a clinician. So for you, I think it's a cakewalk. Now this again, we're done with question number 5. One from PSM, the one from OBG part, obstetrics, gynecology, and the surgery. 2 questions from surgery. Now again, why I'm giving you the details of the subject means now because each question is includes all the subjects given in the syllabus. Okay, within that section. For example, if it is section paper 2 section B, each question includes a mix of 3 subjects: OBG, surgery, and PSM. Okay, now this is from gynecology, that too family planning part. This is infertility, I think, gynecology infertility. They're asking you what is the definition of premature ovarian insufficiency, what are the methods to diagnosis kind of ovulation testings, and how do you manage a patient with a history of primary infertility presenting with premature ovarian insufficiency. So this is the question asked. And again, before this, there were some questions on investigation of primary and secondary infertility, but very rarely asked. It's a kind of new pattern question and a new question from this topic. Now again, question number 6B is from the gastrointestinal surgery. Okay, this is peptic ulcer disease. How do you gonna manage this medically? Or if you want to do surgeries, what are the surgeries available for duodenal ulcer? And what are the complications associated with peptic ulcer surgery? That dealt in detail in our video course. Okay, so again, in the repeat questions are in 1996, enumerate the various complications of peptic ulcer. So they're asking about the complications. And very recently, in 2018, there was a question a bit clinical. What is that? A 25-year-old patient presented to ED with severe pain in the abdomen, and patient is fine oriented, but dehydration is present and tachycardia and BP, hypertension. So there must be something which is bleeding inside. Patient is having some hemorrhagic shock symptoms. So how do you approach this case? Pain abdomen with like perforation of, it can be a perforation of the abdominal viscus. Okay, it can be an intestinal peritonitis, or it can be peptic ulcer perforation. Okay, it can be pancreatitis. All this can be a possibilities. How will you investigate this case? What are you going to do? And what is the management of peptic ulcer perforation peritonitis? Okay, so you have to write the DD of right upper quadrant, like the pain abdomen along with hypertension. Now, question number 6C. So we're done with question number 6B, 1, 2, 3, and 6C is, this is from PSM, from National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program, which is in the syllabus. We discuss about malaria, okay, and next filaria is also very important. So from filaria, they asked it, what are the states in which you see lymphatic filariasis, and what are the strategies that India adopted under National Filaria Control Program so that it can eliminate the lymphatic filariasis, and also what is the criteria which must be met to state that we have achieved lymphatic filariasis elimination. So similar question was asked in 2009, like what is the causative organism and vectors of lymphatic filariasis, and what are its silent control measures, how you are going to control it. So this question is from PSM again. Now we're done with question number 6. 6 we have PSM, we have surgery, and also we have the infertility part. Now question number 7A, you have a 35-year-old male in the emergency department suffering with blunt trauma chest. So chest trauma, we did discuss the hemothorax part. Not only hemothorax, the deadly dozen we did discuss in detail, because from cardiothoracic surgery part, the chest trauma is always been an examiner favorite topic. Okay, so what is the clinical picture? Okay, what will be the clinical picture? How patients gonna the progress in due course, and there is a clinical anatomy question here. What are the boundaries of triangle of safety, and why do we do underwater seal in case of intercostal drainage? Why do we put it underwater? And finally, what is a flail chest and what is its significance and how you manage it? So all these questions are asked. Is there any similar question? Yes. 2011 they asked about 50-year-old admitted with breathlessness following blunt trauma to the chest. Might be again the hemothorax part. And 35-year-old male RTA oriented pale, tachycardia, hypotension, losing blood. So there is internal bleeding and chest contusion is there, and right side decreased movements is there, decreased breathing sound with stony dullness is there. So you have to write the differential diagnosis in these cases, whether it's a spontaneous pneumothorax or whether it's a hemothorax or whether it's a flail chest. So you have to mention all the conditions, DD for the blunt trauma of the chest, deadly doesn't, and you have to give the investigations and also the treatment of the above mentioned criteria. So the hemothorax has been an important question because I think this is the third time they're asking. So please read this topic for sure. And we covered it in detail in the video course. And question number 7B1 is about NRHM. Last year there have been more questions which are more preventive. Like sometimes it becomes very tough. When you see Janani Suraksha Yojana, it's a preventive obstetrics part. Okay, we have preventive pediatrics, preventive obstetrics, which are commonly asked in the exam. Okay, an integration between these two subjects, and NRHM is always been in the part of the syllabus. So with the help of NRHM, how the goals of Janani Suraksha are getting fulfilled at the community level. This is a generic question. And again, list the key areas of action proposed under NRHM which aim to make primary health care comprehensive and universal. So there's many steps taken under NRHM. This is straight lines from the PSM textbook. So this is from the PSM part and it's from the syllabus again. And again, now we have come to the family planning part of the OBG. Non-contraceptive usages of OC pills. What are long-acting reversible contraceptives and what is their advantages over oral contraceptives? What is emergency contraception and how it acts? And enumerate any two emergency contraceptives. How should they be prescribed for their maximum effectiveness? So when within how much duration, whether 5 days or 72 hours, you have to mention that. So emergency contraception and oral contraceptives were discussed in detail in our video course. Okay, so this OC pills and emergency contraception is very important topic because similar questions are asked in 1996 to 2010, 2012, 2016, 2018 and very recently 2019 they're asking about Pearl index. Okay, Pearl index, the contraceptives having different Pearl indices and what is the criteria of it. It's more generic way of asking a question, but overall OC pill has been examiner's favorite for long. Now we are finished this question number 7. We have it from family planning, PSM and also the surgery part again. And question number 8, it's again PSM part, the nutritional part of PSM, because nutrition is also always been a part of biochemistry too. But look at this question, this is a bit different. So what are the dietary factors which influence cardiovascular health? Highlighting the I think this is like a bit tricky and most tough part for me also when I'm preparing notes for this paper. Okay, and because again it looks tricky to read, but it's a direct straight lines from the PSM textbook. Okay, and again explain why vegans are more at risk to develop vitamin B12 deficiency, what is the reason, and also state the ill effects of vitamin B12 deficiency on the human health. So this is the question. Now again, vitamin B12 questions have been asked in the past in 1994, 2003 and 2008 along with the folate trap part. Now what we have is a clinical question here again. 7-month amenorrhea, so after it's like antepartum hemorrhage, APH, on and off bleeding per vaginum, history of myomectomy and history of cesarean 1 year back. Okay, so myomectomy and cesarean, they're all signs, symptoms of placenta previa. So they're risk factors. So they haven't clearly given whether it's a abruptio placenta or placenta previa, but I can say previous cesarean sections and also previous surgeries on the uterus, a patient is prone for placenta previa, which is associated with recurrent bleeding, that is antepartum hemorrhage by placenta previa. So how you're going to evaluate this case of placenta previa, and what is your concern, what might happen, that is, and how do you going to manage this patient based on the gestational age, because they gave it as 28 weeks. So what you will be doing, whether you want to go with expectant management McAfee regimen, or whether you want to go for cesarean section, you have to give that flow chart, which we did discuss. And it's not a new question, vaginal bleeding in the antepartum age. Mostly 34th week was frequently asked with given clinical scenario, but in 2018 they asked placental abruption at 28 week. Now I think they're asking placenta previa part. Again, question number 8C, the last one. This is from the anus and anal canal part of the general surgery. So what do we have here? There is a male with pain and pus discharging near the anus, and diagnosis they have already given. So don't worry that and don't blame examiner that he is asking more and more clinical questions. Though it starts with a clinical scenario, they have clearly given that patient is having fistula in ano. So when you're evaluating fistula in ano, we have a rule called Goodsall rule. We have a classification. How do you going to classify this fistula in ano, and what is the management, whether fistulotomy or fistulectomy, what is the surgical management, you need to mention this. So this is from general surgery. So this concludes our paper 2 section B analysis part. Okay.